I'm John Sauve, and this is Art and Design. Today, my guest is Clare Thibodeau. I'm
Hi.
glad you're here, Clare.
I'm happy to be here.
Clare, how did you get started in ceramics?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually started in high school. It was just one of those things that I had to take an elective, and I just fell in love with it early on. I have two artist parents, so my mother is a fiber artist, and my dad is a oil painter. So I do think that I was always kind of nudged in that direction, but yeah,
Where'd you grow up?
Amherst, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they were both educators too, or?
No, my mom is a nurse and my dad was doing software design, but they always had art, and our home was always very creative and beautiful. So I think I just was influenced as a young age. But also I think I always wanted a challenge, and art is infinitely challenging, and there's so much to do and so much to challenge, and that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So where did you do your undergrad?
So I went to Alfred University for ceramics. It's a great ceramic program, but it is in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. So I had to, really commit. There wasn't no cities nearby, so it was very rural, and I just learned ceramics and firing kilns and mixing clay and everything you would need. Yeah.
What was it that drew you to Alfred University?
Well, it is a really amazing program. One of the things they have there is just like amazing kilns. I mean, like the largest kilns you'll ever see. So of course at a young age, I just walked in there and I was mesmerized by it. But yeah, it was just, I just loved it there, yeah. So
it was the ability to do big work. Did you get to do big work?
Yeah, I on and off do some larger scale pieces. Right now I am focusing on tile work, which is kind of expansive, but in smaller form, but larger quantity. But yeah, it was also just, there's amazing pockets of ceramic communities all over, and I was really lucky to travel and experience all these different places. I was able to go to California and different parts of New York and Pennsylvania, all for residencies and teaching positions. So I've been able to travel a bit.
The residencies between undergrad and grad work that you did, that's a whole different world.
It
right?
is. It totally is. Yeah.
So how did you venture into that? Did you have a plan for it at Alfred, or did you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's a lot of different avenues you can move forward with in kind of craft-based materials. So that would be ceramics or fiber or sculpture or metalworking. There's not only universities that you can go for your undergrad, post-bac, or graduate program, but you can also go to these craft schools. And that's where there's a lot of magic, because it's people all over the world coming together, and it's a less uniform system. You can just come for a workshop or come to teach or so. And that's when you just get people from all over the world coming together and uniting. And that was honestly being able to see many different people, many different abilities and histories coming together to work in the same medium was a big turning point for me. Yeah.
But it's a lifestyle too. When you're doing a residency, it's a finite period of time as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's a transition. It's always a transition to something else, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, there's longer residencies. They can be kind of more self-driven, like I want to focus on a project and complete this, or I want to experience this area, or, it could just be to kind of figure things out too, or start a new body of work, or yeah, it really, the cool thing is that you can really make it what you want in a lot of different ways.
Now, was it one of those residencies that led you to Cranbrook?
Yeah, I would say that, so I was in actually Sonoma, California doing a residency there for 6 months, and then I taught for 2 years. My partner and I were in California for that time, and I had a friend that just had graduated from Cranbrook, and she came in for the next section of residency afterwards, Joanne Lee, and she just was like, this is the spot. You got to go to Cranbrook. And I applied that year, and yeah. And I just was pretty gung-ho about going. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and this, had you known about Cranbrook prior to that?
Kind of. It is well regarded. Definitely Alfred and Cranbrook are kind of those, well-known ceramic facilities in the United States. So it was definitely on my mind. The ironic thing is that half of my family are Midwestern. So my mom actually lives in Royal Oak. And it was just coincidental. It was one of those things that I was like, I'm going to apply to Cranbrook. I want to see how close it is to my mom. And it was 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So that was, pretty amazing. So.
Well, and then the other thing I was going to mention is you started Cranbrook right during the pandemic, too, right?
I did. It was weird.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a little... for a program that is kind of Bauhaus style, where it's, you're really feeding off of your peers and expansively between all mediums. There's 15 departments at Cranbrook, and they all kind of like to weave in and out of each other, more so than strictly ceramic-based or metal or fiber. So that was a little tough because, if we're doing Zoom critiques and things like that, it was, but we made it work, it really did. And honestly, focused a lot. I mean, I had headphones on, mask on, in my studio space, so I made a lot of work. And
okay, so I do have to ask that because, we had pretty tight regulations at the time, but you were still able to use the studio.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We were just very cautious.
And the restrictiveness of, week to week, it was a different set of rules.
Totally, yeah.
And you had just started your MFA in a place that... Yeah.
And we, honestly, I think I was really lucky because the year before me, they did, have to go remote for a whole semester, which really upset their 2-year program. I actually never had to do that, which is amazing. I mean, they threatened it all the time. We were like, this is the one, we're kicked out. And then we just kind of moved through. Yeah. I think the beautiful thing is that it's also only a graduate program. So everyone was an adult, and we, for the most part, handled it pretty maturely and to regulation. So I think that also helps too.
Well, and the studios at Cranbrook are amazing.
Yes, amazing.
And I like your attitude where it was like, I just got to hone in and focus on my work, which, there could be no better way, less distractions than ever with your approach. So, boy, but what a strange 2 years to do a grad program.
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting. As we've met at CCS, and I'm just starting on this fall semester as a new adjunct in the ceramic department. And it is kind of interesting talking to my students about what their experience was, because they're coming straight out of high school and have not had a normal college experience. And I don't know what a normal college, like everyone's is different, but that's kind of an interesting part too.
I'm glad you brought that up, because to generalize, these kids were really on their own for a couple years.
Right.
And is there something that you see that's a theme in their makeup as a result of the pandemic? I don't know. Well, I would say there's one positive thing, which is I can tell my students are really happy to be in the studio and have hands-on clay, and they're energetic and tenacious right now. And I think that is kind of, when you're on pause for a significant amount of time, that kind of builds up some energy probably. I also think that, I'm noticing as a teacher, I'm also kind of
liaison of emotional support too. I have to admit that, I am very involved with how my students' lives are going. One thing that I'm really utilizing in my class is trying to build a really healthy emotional environment too. So we do check-ins at the beginning of class to see how they're doing or so. And just trying to, I think that's something that we also really learned during the pandemic is creating a healthy environment, and how do we educate and learn in an imperfect environment, and what is the necessity of that? What really do we need? So I think that one thing stepping into CCS lately is taking the role as a mentor, not just a teacher.
Well, and I'm going to take it a step farther, that the enthusiasm you see in those students is coming from a direction that you're giving as well.
I hope
because
so. Yeah.
I'm going to say you're infectious with that.
So, thank you.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's what I've heard from your students as well.
Oh, really?
Just so you know.
Oh, really?
So you just take that and own it.
All right.
So
that's great.
CCS, you came into the department.
Yeah.
And you're working on a body of work as well, and I think you have some images.
I
do. You think you can kind of show us what direction?
Yeah,
you're
so that's
in?
me. So that's kind of me, the scale I'm working with. So I am obviously a ceramic artist, but I'm a wheel thrower first. So I use the pottery wheel almost solely to start. And since Cranbrook, I'm moving forward into these more industrial tiles. So these, even though they look thick, they're about 2 inches thick. This is a 6-foot wall piece. They're hollow casted. So really the idea behind these are to kind of infiltrate all realms. Yes, I think these can be in, restaurants or industrial places, but, I think that the basis of these are, I want these to be in a domestic space, right? So I want art in a space that is a little bit more accessible. So this not being this huge heavy piece, this is resonating with a window and a bouquet. One thing I was thinking about was interior, exterior. So looking in through the window to a dark house, or looking out into, the dark yard. But obviously resonating with arts and crafts movement, bouquets, floral elements, all of that. Yeah. So there's, a little bit of my wheel throwing work, always using porcelain. I use a method called Mishima, and it's inlaying color into the clay. And it's a little tricky, but I like to I call it with my students the Clare 3000, but it's a mechanical pencil that I jammed a sewing needle in. And
do you do homemade tattoos too?
Oh no, I should. I really should.
The Clare 3000.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get my students hooked on it too. Some of them are interested, but yeah. That's a finished piece. So again, I can imagine this in a lot of different areas, but I'm really thinking about home and art and design and history of craft. And another topic is women's work. So thinking about history of fiber arts and ceramics and our role in this really significant time in ceramics. One thing I was thinking about before, which was, so these are all the molds that it takes to slip cast this piece. Yeah, 2-part molds, casting these pieces. Yeah, so that's a pretty significant one too, about 9 feet wide. What is that, like 5 feet tall or so? But just really resembling tapestry and quilt. And those are all hand carved and inlaid. So you can imagine just these huge canvases that I'm working with.
The Clare 3000 example again. I like that.
Clare 3000, yeah.
And if you order now.
I know, yeah. I'd make a killing.
Yes, you would.
I would. I'd just go bulk buy mechanical pencils. And this is also kind of back to that pillow vessel.
Yeah.
That is a hollow casted serving platter. So that's something I also make at this time, which is really thinking about serving and the dance around serving. So I wanted to create these tangible serving vessels that are light and hollow, that kind of self-embed the movement of serving and collecting and capturing a bodily connection. This is kind of something that you'll see a lot at the Cranbrook sales and over at CCS or so. I try to get these out there pretty quickly. And that is actually my most recent piece is my thesis show. So that took about 750 hollow tiles, all hand carved, black and white, with hints of silver, just to throw in some edge. Really resembling, with this piece, collaging domestic elements. I brought in a couple house plants and then chopped them up so you can kind of see that mother's in-law tongue or snake plant and a fiddly fig, but having it all flipped around and captured into these more arts and crafts movement patterning and some floral patterning, so kind of resembling cushions, couches, curtains, fiber history, but also creating it in ceramics, which is a really dense material. Yeah, and back to what I was saying before, but it is really amazing to be a ceramic artist right now. One thing I talk to my students about is, our oldest pottery shard is 15,000 years old, and due to ceramic chemistry, we are producing work that can last up to 20,000 years right now. So we're at this like peak modern age of being an artist. And meanwhile, we have Target and Walmart creating handmade lines, right? And ceramic artists now have accessibility to CNCing and 3D clay printing. So we're kind of at this moment where, especially for my students at CCS, they have accessibility to everything. So it's what is it that is important to you? And for my work, it's both moving forward with CNC work and creating these modular forms for the home, but also capturing that sensitivity of the carving and that respect of the clay, and capturing these little meaningful moments of my hand to this piece, and then having that be put into someone's home. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, since you've been in the Detroit area, Pewabic?
Yeah.
Because you're making these references, I'm like, you must have been over there.
I have, yeah. Pewabic's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just over there the other day, and they had their first kiln they used, and it was originally used for porcelain teeth or so. One thing is, I do also love that Pewabic is women-funded, right?
Women-funded,
yeah.
And she was in sales too, right?
Yeah,
she was out selling kilns.
Powerhouse. Yeah.
And a time when sales was not was very male-oriented, right?
Exactly. Even ceramics was at that time too. So it's
She's a pretty amazing person.
Pretty incredible, pretty inspirational, and very Detroit. I would say. Just like anything that's like tenacious and breaking molds and creating art, that is Detroit.
You're sounding like a Detroiter all of a sudden.
I am a Detroiter.
I like
I'm
that.
a self-declared Detroiter, yeah.
Huh. So you're here to stay?
I am, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I am.
Claire, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I have my first home in Ferndale now.
Nice.
Yes,
and
I love
great
it.
place to be.
It's great. Love it. Yeah, so you're probably stuck with me for a while.
I hope so.
Yeah.
The thing is, between your previous experience and your Cranbrook experience, and then I've seen you in action at CCS, and what a great place to be too.
Yeah.
You're leaving a legacy already.
I'm trying. I told, I'm lucky to work with Ebitanifa Barley, who's the head of the ceramic department, and I keep dropping hints. I'm like, I'm staying, like I'm here. And just so you know. I'm a CCSer
it
now.
helps to remind him constantly.
Yeah, constantly.
But
right?
I noticed that
I'm sure
he
appreciates
is
it.
not he's not putting up any resistance that I've noticed.
Oh no! Yes, I think
he's understanding.
so
he's
too.
comprehending all of this.
And it's great, and it's there's a lot of great teachers moving in that space too, and it's great to all the time I'm talking to people. Educators in the product design department and over in class about, oh, what are you doing in your class, or how are you critiquing, or one of my favorite things right now is doing questionnaires with my students. So like I have made some sheets of how do you like to be critiqued, and what do you think is important when we talk about these things. So
are you trying to get them to think or something?
Yeah, and I'm also trying to understand where they're coming from too, because this is a totally different generation.
Yes,
I have
it is.
no idea what Twitch is, and they're downloading apps for me that I'm acting like family members trying to understand.
It's in the there's a degree of fragility too.
Yes,
these kids went through a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
that is going to take quite a while to unpack all of this stuff.
Right.
Things that we were on the back end of and had a different perspective, where there were impressionable mind at the time that a lot of things were going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things there that understandably that there's some fragility. So
I think about as an adult, what it was like to go through COVID, but being in your formative years where you're really still hashing out how to be a person. And, that's a conversation I have with my students all the time, especially ones coming into their first semester, freshmen, just talking about not only are you learning, you're learning how to be a student, and you're also learning how to be on your own as an adult. And so that's a lot of learning all at once. So to have that compromised by, isolation and being stuck at home is,
idle hands.
Idle hands, yeah.
I heard that's a bad thing.
I heard,
so,
yeah. Well, let's change it to a good thing, Yes, exactly.
You're definitely making that happen. Now, so Claire, you've got this body of work.
Yes.
And what directions are you going with your personal work?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm turning to more of a design realm. So I'm starting to touch base with a couple of design firms, and I want to take this a little bit further. And I'm thinking about how can I create a system of custom-built hollow tiles that can be in anybody's home or so. If they just want a little bit of, let's say a panel going through their living room, how can that happen? And how, I think that's really important to me, is just art in everyday life. I also am collaborating with a close friend of mine and making a dish set line. So we're thinking about how can we make a set number of dishes that kind of helps bring art into the home, but also create significance. And how can we create a system that also brings in other artists? For example, we were wondering, could we create a general line of work that is accessible to all, but then can we invite an artist to come in and decorate 100 of them and disperse that? It is a beautiful thought that, again, just to mention that we have 30, maybe however many decades this ceramics is going to last, that these are going to be in homes, and hopefully they'll have a historic significance in Detroit.
Did you see the Gerard show that was at Cranbrook?
Oh, the recent one?
It was in the last 5 years, and it might have been before you got here.
I think it was before me. Yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of things you're talking about seem reminiscent of some of his ideas in that show.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think of also like Ani Anders and different artists, and it's funny because you always think of her husband, but I can't remember his name right now. What is his name?
Was it Joseph?
Yes, it was. Joseph Anders. Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. So I know. Sorry, I put you on the spot
No, I
for a
just
second.
pulled that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of that similar mentality of bringing craft into art and capturing those time and movements and patterning. You know.
Was that Black Mountain College?
I think so. Yeah. Right.
I'm just trying to show off right now.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're testing. I should be talking
it was.
about this on TV if I don't know. But yeah, just thinking about all those different artists.
It's like a whole historical perspective
Yeah.
that you're drawing on for your own work as well
Yeah.
as for your practice,
Yeah.
whether it be school or the direction you're going in. It's exciting. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely pushing my students into that too, which is, I gave them this prompt recently, and it was, we kind of were laughing through it, all of us, because it was important. It was talking about what do you want would you want someone to know? We were thinking about relief sculpture, right? So they had to make these 2-foot relief sculptures about themselves. And it was like, if someone's going to unbury this in, 5,000 years, what do you want them to know about you? Like, what's important? And, it was kind of funny because we were laughing and we were like, that's kind of dark, but it's also really beautiful too. So. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we could just go right back to what they've just been through.
Right.
And where they see themselves in the world. Mm-hmm. There's these bigger questions that they've been forced into and that they had to experience and that they had to go through.
Right.
That your work and you're presenting them with the challenge of trying to think that way.
Yes.
Which is a great thing.
Yeah.
In a very positive way, too.
I think so.
So I think you do a very good job with that.
Thank you. I think you do too.
Oh, stop.
Yes. This is how we pump each other up,
Yeah.
right? As teachers.
Needed.
Yes.
Claire, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. The other thing is, I'm looking forward to where you're going to end up with all these pieces.
I'd love that. Yeah. I'll
So-
keep you posted. Maybe we'll have
We can do a follow-up.
follow-ups.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And I'll come in and say I have a whole different plan.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.